Hey folks, today we're going to be assembling our new single post double diaphragm pump RO kit. So obviously the card is not provided and you'll have to get that and drill it according to our specifications if you're going to mount it on a similar card as ours. All the bolts and everything and mounting brackets do come with the kit. So we're going to walk you through unboxing it, how to get all the fittings put where they need to be put, and when you're all done, you'll have a 60 gallon per hour RO system. So, first thing you're going to want to do is take your membrane tube, which ships in a separate package, and set that off to the side. Notice it does have a label, which tells you which way the flow has to go. So since the arrow points up, we're going to want to come into the bottom and out the top. Our discharges will be at the top. And make sure your caps are on tight after shipping. We'll put that over here for now. Next, unbox your main package. This is the second package that's going to ship. You can have your hoses. You can have 3 flow meters. 2 of these have a valve, 1 of them does not. Your bolt kit we're going to need. Our schematic diagram. It comes with 2 filters. RO soap to be used to clean it at the end of the season. Our pre-filter. 2 pumps, our fitting kit, which are all defined on our schematic. They're all labeled A, B, C, D, E. Our membrane housing mounting kit, which consists of 2 upper clamps, 2 straps to hold it, and 2 cushions you put behind just to keep it nice and secure. 2 transformers for the pumps. The upper gauge assembly, 2 mounting brackets, 1 for the flow meters, 1 for the transformer should you decide to use it. I'll show you that when we get to it. And then your pre-filter mounting bracket. So the first thing we're going to do is to get all our fittings installed, so we don't have to worry about fittings. We're going to get them all Teflon taped and put them where they go. If you open up your fitting kit, there's going to be 6 different fittings. You're going to have 1/2 inch threaded fittings, and you're also going to have 4 3/8 inch threaded fittings. The 3/8 inch fittings with the smaller thread, they go in your pump, so 4 of those go in the pump. And then you need your corresponding elbows as well. So we're going to go ahead and thread all these in, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. I use about 10 to 12 turns of Teflon tape when I put these fittings in. I know it probably seems excessive, but these are not like a standard, metal fitting. And when you go plastic to plastic, it takes a little more to get them to seal. And the last thing you want is a pesky leak that makes a mess in your sugar shack. So put 2 of the 1/2 inch fittings in your pre-filter. I snug these up with a 1 inch socket. I wouldn't recommend putting any sort of tool on these because you're just going to end up breaking something. Hand tight with a socket works really good. Next, on our membrane, flip it upside down. The center port, the very center, that's your water discharge. That's going to get a screw fitting. And you don't want to over tighten this clamp, but you want to get it tight enough so that the cap doesn't blow off. So we're going to install an elbow fitting, also on this bottom cap on the concentrate outlet. So now we have our center port plugged and our other port with a 90-degree elbow on it. And we're not going to do anything with the top at this point. We'll just plumb that up once we get it on the cart. So we can put our housing off to the side. On our pumps, we have our 3/8 fitting installed. These have an O-ring, so you really don't need to Teflon tape those. So put the straight fitting in on both sides, and then put 2 elbows in. And you're going to do the same on both of your pumps so they look just like that. Okay, set that stuff off to the side. Next we're going to move on to our cart. And we need to drill this thing. So it's pretty easy. You're going to want to use a M8 drill or similar. It's similar to a 5/16, quarter inch, somewhere around there. Just to make sure your bolts fit through. So you're going to want to mount your pre-filter housing on the back here. So what I do is I just hold this and then drill my 2 holes for that. For your pumps, you're going to set those on here. And you will notice that when you do set them on, you have to offset them to get them both to fit on the cart. And then you're going to scribe those 4 holes. So you can see how those are offset. One's a little in front of the other. And then mark those 4 holes and drill those through. And we're going to put those 8 bolts in to hold your pumps on. So we'll mark those 4 with a Sharpie. And then we'll drill those 4 holes. Next you're going to need 2 holes towards the ends for your straps, here and here. They're going to hold our membrane housing on. So they need to be about 5 inches apart. I just go about a 1/2 inch from one side here and a 1/2 inch from one side here to give myself enough room to put the nut in. So take some time, drill your holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 8 on the bottom. And then we can start assembling all our components. So the first thing we're going to do is take our pump and run the 4 larger bolts up through the bottom to hold our pump on. You'll notice in your kit there's large bolts and then shorter bolts. They're all the same diameter, but the lengths are a little bit different. It actually works good assembling this on a table because you can get underneath to get the bolts in. So you're going to put 8 total in to hold your motor. Make sure your electrical connectors are pulled back so you don't mess them up. Next we're going to install our pre-filter mounting bracket using 2 of the shorter bolts. Put those through and then install your nut on the back and then snug those up with a 10mm wrench. You're going to have a little pack of 4 screws as well. These screws hold the pre-filter on. When you install your pre-filter, make sure the inlet is facing this way and the outlet is facing that way. And then these little screws are going to come through the bracket into the hole in the top, like that. Next, we can install our tube. So we're going to lower this down. I like to use a little spacer, just so I'm off the pumps a little bit. A little bit of rolled up cardboard works really good for that. Set your spacer on top of your pump and then just set the tube right down. We can take our first strap, run it through, and put a nut on it. And then you have to install your rubber behind. Put that through and install your other nut. We're going to do the same on the bottom to secure everything. So here we go. I have my top cap on tight. I have my 4 screws in my pre-filter. All those bolts are tight, and I installed the 8 bolts for the bottom pumps. Have my fittings all set. My 2 fittings on the pre-filter are also in. And then if you remember those bottom fittings on the caps, those are also installed. So I have my plug fitting and then my elbow, which I'm going to use to plumb the concentrate. So the next step is to start plumbing this thing. So I like to use blue for my sap inlet and water discharge and red for anything that's under pressure. That way I can look and just tell what's under pressure right away. So the first thing I'm going to do is install an elbow on into the outlet of the pre-filter and start a piece of hose. We're going to run this hose into the inlet on one of the pumps. Then we're going to cut it and tee it. So I'll just cut some hose here to work with. Then we're going to bring this around and through. Your pumps run this way. So this is our inlet and it runs this way. So from here to here and here to here. So I'm going to plumb this to here, to my first pump. Then I'm going to run a T fitting, so that I can hook the other inlet also into that. So now I have sap going into both pumps. Now I need sap to come out of both pumps. Now this is under pressure, so this I'm going to hook into that inlet T on the bottom cap. So this is now going to go into the bottom of that membrane. We're going to want to flow out from this pump, but also out from this pump. So I'm also going to cut a T back here. So another T fitting. And these push connects make it real easy to do this. I try to cut the hoses just long enough so that they're under a little bit of pressure and they're not tight, so they're always being kind of pushed in. So if you look at what I have now, we're coming out of the pre-filter up here into our two inlets, out of our two outlets, teed together, and then going back into the bottom of that membrane. So now we'll plumb the top of this. I'll take my valve assembly and thread that into the first cap. Keep this, this does not go tight. If you over tighten it, you're going to crack the cap. So you can see how I just ran that in with my hand. That's probably all you're going to need. It's better to err on the side of it being a little loose and dripping a little, because we can always just pop the fittings and spin it around one more time. But what you don't want to do is crack this cap. We're also going to need a permeate outlet in the center port, just like we did on the bottom. So I'll go ahead and thread that in. And then again, that's a low pressure fitting on that one, so you don't have to worry about that leaking too much. Next, we're going to put an elbow on the back side of that water fitting to make it easier to plumb. We also need a threaded fitting coming out of our gauge assembly. So I'll Teflon tape that and put that off our gauge. This fitting is also under pressure, so we want to snug that one up real good. We're also going to put a 90 on that. Next, we're going to take our flow meter that does not have the valve in it. These fittings don't need Teflon tape because they have a washer. You only want to put those finger tight. You don't want to put a tool on them or you're going to crack the fitting. So screw those on. Remove your two nuts. Get your mounting bracket. So the way this works is this is going to go in the center, but your bar is going to come through here before you do that. So it's going to straddle the bar, like so. If it doesn't go in, you can also take and just back those out a little bit to give yourself a little more room. It depends on what cart you're using and how thick the steel is. So now I have a lot of room now. And then that'll kind of hold it in place for you to get your other 2 meters on. Just going to go ahead and snug these up a little bit. And again, these don't have to be too tight. Just enough so that the nuts aren't flopping around in the back. There we go. We can install the remaining fittings on the back of these. 2 for our concentrate meter, and then 2 for our recirculation. Next, we'll flip our card around and we will start plumbing our upper sections. We'll come out of the middle cap and we're going to come straight down into the bottom of our permeate meter. I'm going to put an elbow there too just to make it nice. This is not going to get plumbed right now because this port here is going to be our water discharge when you're ROing. So this you're going to hook into whenever you run your RO. Next we'll run our concentrate. Into the bottom of our concentrate flow meter. The same thing with an elbow. And this is going to be our concentrate discharge. So this hole is not going to get plumbed right now either. What we do need to do is cut our discharge and tee it into the recirculation valve. So I'm going to make a cut right here. I'm going to install a tee. And then I'm going to run that down into the bottom of our recirculation meter over here. We can put an elbow on it to make it a little nicer. There we go. And then the top of that recirculation meter needs to come back and feed into our inlet. So that's my inlet down here. I'm going to cut my inlet hose. I'm going to install a T. I'm going to install a 90, and then I'm going to hook my recirculation outlet into here. So basically what will happen is when this valve's open, it's just going to allow sap to come out and back into the inlet side of the pump so it can run back around the membrane one more time. I'm going to use blue hose for that just because it's low pressure. Sometimes these hoses are a little tricky to get in. You got to kind of twist them. And it also helps if you get it on the elbow first and then install the elbow. Put that here and that's it. Now we're done. If you would like to use our transformer mounting bracket, it goes like this. So you place the power cord facing up. These holes are pre-drilled for you to use the bolts, the short bolts provided in the kit. You will need to drill the transformer out a little bit just so you can get the bolt through, like that. And then you will mount it here, and then again another bolt here. The other transformer mounts next to it. This bracket, you'll have to, I push down on it, just kind of rotate it a little to mark the 2 bottom holes where I need them. Then I can see where those are. I'll need a hole here and a hole here. And then you will utilize your 2 strap bolts. Put 2 nuts on those. And then you'll have to drill 2 holes here and use 2 of the small bolts provided to mount the top. I recommend bolting the transformers to the bracket first because it's hard to get behind there. And then once the assembly is put together, you can go ahead and mount it to the cart. So what we have now is our concentrate comes down to a T. It runs into our recirculation meter. The other part of that runs into our concentrate meter. The other part runs into our recirculation meter. Our recirculation meter then gets teed into the existing inlet we already plumbed down here. And then these are our two discharge ports. This is our concentrate discharge. This is our permeate discharge. And we're all set. Show you a front view of our caps here. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email at sales@therobucket.com.